Hello everyone, and welcome to, I guess, an ink testing video. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. So I wanted to make this video because I got this ink a while ago from Stationery. It's by Ink Institute. And I bought it because I loved the color, but when I got it, I mean, it was barely legible when I used it in a pen. And I'll show you that in a little bit. And I got it to go in this fountain pen, which is a very inexpensive and not a great fountain pen. It really isn't. But I like the color and I like to take it with me sometimes. And it was the perfect color match for this pen, which is silly, but it's how I operate sometimes. So it's been sitting here and I really haven't used it. I filled up this pen one time and I haven't really used it. And I was on the Stationery website last week, just sort of dreaming, and just to see what was up, new and up and coming and that kind of thing. And I saw this ink again, and I read about it, and then I understood that I was using it all wrong. So what this is, it's called a mixing ink. All right, and I don't know if that's why it says MI for mixing. I really don't know. But the color that I got it in is Misty Lake. It's a gorgeous color, as you will see. But this ink is not meant to necessarily use on its own. It's meant to fill your fountain pen with, all right? And then when you use your fountain pen, you dip the tip of it into another ink color and start to write. And what happens is the ink gradually changes colors as you're writing, which is pretty cool, right? So I thought I would just show you what this ink looks like. This is MD paper, MD cotton. So this pen, by the way, I can't even remember the name of it. I got it at Jet Pens a long time ago, and it's just no good. So I'm writing, this ink is far too light for this fine nib. And it is. You can barely see it. And it just doesn't flow well from this pen. This pen, quite honestly, even when I put black ink in it, I'm unhappy with it. So it's not the ink's fault necessarily, but you can see it's just too light for legibility. Beautiful color, matches the pen beautifully, right? But it's just not great. But when I read about what this ink is supposed to do, I took this pen and I tested it with this ink, which is the Watercolour Song of Reed. And I love this color, and it still was like unsatisfactory. All right, I think this pen is just too fine and too greedy with its ink flow for this to work properly. So I put this pen away and I decided to fill up my Pelikan M200 with the Misty Lake ink. And so I did. Now, right off the bat, all right, I would say still far too light, okay? Far too light to use as your everyday ink. All right, it looks pretty with the pen and all of that, but it's just far too light. But then I thought I would try it with you with Song of Reed, and we'll just do this together, okay? So Song of Reed is basically like a golden green, it's more golden, like a golden ochre with a little bit of green in it, and there's no shimmer. It's a really nicely shading ink. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite colors, and I use it mostly for dip pens. I have one pen filled with it right now. So I'm just dipping the tip of my fountain pen into the Song of Reed ink. And I'm sorry, I have to turn my paper. All right, so this is Song of Reed. On top, I guess, of Misty Lake mixing ink from Ink Institute. Now, as I'm writing, I can already see the color shifting. Now, this is perfectly fine to me to use as a writing ink. It's perfectly legible, and there are some beautiful color variations happening. It's a great ink for when you want shading. It's best in a medium nib. This is a fine nib, but it's a wet fine nib. So you get a little bit of it, but this would be awesome in a medium nib too. So I'm going to turn my voice off and put some music on, and I'm just going to finish this page with some writing and see what happens. So that's interesting. I mean, it really is beautiful. It slowly sort of shifted, nowhere near back to the original color yet. So you could write 2 or 3 page letter, I bet, and you would get this gradual, slow shifting. And I truly only dipped the tip. So I think what happens when you dip the tip, it wicks it up, right? It's just like when you rinse your nib under water and it soaks some of that water up and your ink is weak for a little while. I think it's really beautiful. And the only thing is that it is getting a little bit lighter down here, but I think still legible. It's more legible than this to me. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Let me try it on another paper. That's MD paper. This is Leuchtturm. Let me just test it out in here. This is actually my calendar, but let's just see. Because the MD paper tends to soak it, right, a little bit. Yeah, this really writes a little juicier on this paper. And I knew that would be the case. Actually, Leuchtturm paper can feather sometimes with certain inks that don't have a lot of body to them. But that looks great. So already you can see just by using a wetter paper that it changed even more, right? It's starting to go back to a little bit mintier. So let's try one other paper. Actually, we'll try two other papers. This is my, okay. This is my moleskin. This is going to be closer to the MD paper, I think. But that cotton, the cotton really soaks up the ink. See, this looks a little lighter and not as wet. Okay, but it's shifting. It's changing. And then one other one. This is Tomoe River paper. That we used for another test. And this is probably where fountain pens shine the most, where inks shine. Like shading inks really shine on this paper. Yeah, I think it's still legible. It's teetering on the edge, I think. If it were any lighter, I don't think it would work. And I think it's really getting back to that original color. It's starting to. So, yeah, I think you just have to know when to stop, and know, and choose your paper wisely. I think the Leuchtturm paper looked the best, to be honest with you. It really did. So yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, they did have other colors, so if you wanted to, you could, there were maybe one or two that were a little bit darker than this. I just love this color. I love this gray-green kind of color. It's just really nice for me. Let me show you what the ink looks like just on its own. I have a Q-tip. It's very pretty. It's a beautiful gray-green, and when it dries, it has some nice sheening to it. So that's what the color looks like on its own. Again, just not dark enough for a daily writer or to write anything that anyone else you would expect anyone else to read. For your own notes and stuff, fine. But I think it definitely needs to be mixed with another color. But you see how this is getting closer. It's definitely getting closer. Let me just write a little bit more. And you see how it's getting lighter and lighter as it goes more towards the original color. And that's just way too light. This is even pushing it for me, I think. And I think we're almost back. But how cool, right? Now I will use it. I will definitely use this ink now, especially for letter writing. But it was just sitting there forever, and I'm so glad that I read about it. So glad. All right. So that's it. I just wanted to share this with you. Well, I figured if I'm gonna test it out, I might as well test it out with you. And you can see how much it did change, right? From here to here. And it's very gradual. It's beautiful. I really think so. And depending on the color you choose, you could pick black ink, to be honest with you. It would be really fascinating to try. And you might get more bang for your buck, you know, a longer transition. In fact, we can just try that really quickly. Why not, right? I don't think I have black, but I have a really dark gray, and we can try that. So this is Edelstein ink in Moonstone, the Pelican Edelstein. And if I just dip the very tip, I'm talking the very tip, just a little bit of the tip, so it's barely touching the feed. And see how much darker this is, right? To begin with. And I think you could get a really interesting gradual shift with your letter writing. Oh, it's, yeah, it's already changing. It's very subtle. And it's not for everyone, and I realize that. But for me, these things bring me little pockets of joy, you know? And I love writing letters. And I take a lot of notes and do a lot of writing, and so by hand. And so these little things bring me joy. And it's gradually shifting into a different color. It's kind of turning like a taupey brown. Very pretty. I'll be off the camera. Yeah, I think this would work really well. It's getting lighter, but interesting, right? And I think it would just gradually continue to shift. So starting out with a darker ink might be really useful. Okay, so that's it. Ink Institute Mixing Ink in Misty Lake. I got it at Watercolour Stationery. And I'm sure, and they still have it. So, all right, everyone, thanks so much. I'll see you again soon. I have lots of stuff. I'm fitting these in. All right, take care. Bye-bye.